For almost 2 decades, we have seen awesome rivalries and sheer dominance at the top of the men's tennis game with the big three and throw in Andy Murray with the big four. But in the women's game, yes, we've had the dominance of Serena Williams, but she's not really ever had a real rival. And we've definitely had nothing like the big three. In fact, in the last 20 years, no one has won double-digit Grand Slam counts. No one's got the 10 or more besides Serena in the women's game. Very different than what we see with the big three in the men's game. But this is ironic because the women's game is where we originally saw these awesome rivalries. This is where we actually first saw dominance. At the start of the 20th century, we had Helen Wills, who would win 19 majors. A rival of hers, although they unfortunately didn't get to play too many times, was Suzanne Lenglen. These two women were international superstars back then in the early 1900s. And you may not know them, but I bet you've probably heard of Suzanne Lenglen because today, one of the biggest tennis stadiums in the world is named after her at the French Open. In the 60s and 70s, we had Billie Jean King and Margaret Court winning just about everything. In the 70s and 80s, you had Chrissy Evert and Martina Navratilova. Move over to the 90s, you have Steffi Graf winning almost everything. Throw in Monica Seles. She didn't get to double digits. Maybe she would have without her horrific accident, but they had quite a little rivalry going. And in 1999, the same year Steffi Graf was to win the last of her 22 majors and Serena was to win the first of her 23 majors, we haven't seen any great rivalries in the women's game, and we haven't seen any double-digit slam champions since. Just Serena for the last 20 years. Now, let's give some credit because there were times where it felt like we were close to that. We had Venus Williams, but she has won 7 majors, never got to 10, and we always knew that Serena didn't really like having to play her own sister. Not much of a rivalry there. We had Maria Sharapova, and maybe we wanted that to be a rivalry, but we all know it never really was. We had Justine Henin, but she kind of unexpectedly retired very early in her career. Well, today we got a new champion named Sofia Kenin. And just recently, last year at the U.S. Open, we got a first-time champion, a 19-year-old. Sofia is 21 years old. We had a 19-year-old champion in Bianca Andreescu, who, if she wasn't injured, probably would have liked her chances to win this year or go pretty far at the Australian Open. And if you throw Naomi Osaka into the mix, I think she is 22 years old, we potentially have on our hands a new women's big three with some serious rivalries just around the corner. Fingers crossed. And the best part about Sofia Kenin to me is that luckily for us, we have some video interviews from her as a 5-year-old, and we can see that she has been planning on dominating the sport of tennis her entire life.
Why do you want to be a tennis pro?
Because I want to be a champion and I want to be #1 in the world.
The young Sofia was also asked, how hard do you practice? Do you train for tennis every day?
Are you on the tennis court every day?
Yeah, but except the rain.
Well, earlier today, Sofia did in fact play tennis in the rain. But fortunately for her and all of us, she got to play in the rain at one of the biggest tennis stadiums in the world where they have a roof. Today on Coffee Break Tennis, we break down the women's final of the 2020 Australian Open. We'll give you the play-by-play and the breakdown on how everything happened in that match. Plus, with the roof closed, we got a sneak peek at what a final can be like on this court with slower conditions. The roof will not be closed for the men's final tomorrow, but it will be fairly similar conditions. We'll talk about that. And also, you'll get some of my final thoughts as we are just mere moments away from the men's final. Hours away, whatever. Welcome to Coffee Break Tennis, the fastest growing tennis talk show in the world. I am your host, Matt Bradshaw, owner of one of the highest tennis IQs on record. Some say even higher than Roger Federer's. Some say. And we sure are happy to have you here. Real quick shout out to the Patron Saints. Just wanted to give you a big thank you, and especially some of the people out there who just signed up to be a part of the team and help Coffee Break Tennis keep going. So a big thank you for helping me do what we're doing here at Coffee Break Tennis. If you want to check it out, go to go to patreon.com/Coffee Break Tennis if you want to become a member of the show today. So I was excited to do a video on the women's final today. I figured since I got my men's final stuff done yesterday, And today I just had to record an awesome Dominic Thiem song that no one will hear if he doesn't beat Djokovic tomorrow. Other than that, I had a little more free time today without any men's matches to watch. So I was excited to take a look at the women's final. And I was also excited to have a chance to see what the conditions were like going in as things were slowing down. Now, the conditions were similar today, but it was actually raining. Tomorrow it won't be raining, so they had the roof closed for the women's final. But it was a really exciting final, and first I just want to talk about it itself. And let's start off with what Mary Jo Fernandez said, because I thought she did a great job talking about how the conditions, and you know, the more and more you think about the conditions, they're always going to do a thing to benefit this person for one aspect of their game, while at the same time, they're probably going to help the other person, the opponent on the other side of the net, probably going to help them with something. And it's never just one clear-cut beneficiary of, I mean, sometimes it feels like it is, but we don't always guarantee certain conditions are only going to help one and hurt the other. So I wrote down here in my match notes that Mary Jo Fernandez was talking about the conditions, and she said you never really know who it's going to help the most. That she said Garbiñe Muguruza will be able to hit through slow conditions with more firepower than Kenin, yes, but at the same time, Sofia Kenin's going to be able to get back some of the best serves because Mugu has a lot more firepower on the serve, or every shot really, compared to Kenin, and it's going to help Kenin return some of those unreturnable serves in the slower conditions. So, you know, we'll definitely see that with Dominic Thiem and Djokovic. They both will have easier looks at the opponent's serve because of slower conditions, but you never know who is that going to help the most. So I thought that was very interesting, and the way this match played out for me is the conditions ultimately helped Sofia Kenin the most because, one, she was better about think of someone like a Djokovic or a Roger Federer. She was a lot better at stalking the baseline, taking the ball very early, robbing her opponent of time, and being able to strike a little earlier. Whereas Muguruza, we saw her win the first set, but in that first set, both players were kind of battling with nerves. I thought Muguruza impressive. You can tell she's a multi-champ. She's won a couple majors. You could tell she has that champion mindset because she was able to hide until she's like, double faulting at match point and at deuce serving to stay alive in the third set. And you can't hide it when that's happening. But I think she was very nervous throughout the entire match, first, second, and third set, but did a pretty good job to hide it. Sofia Kenin, on the other hand, it was pretty obvious. You could tell everything she feels. And in a lot of ways, Sofia Kenin kind of reminds me of Djokovic. She never gave up. She gets very angry at herself and doesn't hide it at times. It shows a lot of emotion and very good at taking the ball early, robbing the opponent of time. And I really enjoyed watching that part of Sofia Kenin's game. So in the first set, you saw Muguruza able to hit through the slow conditions and overpower her opponent. But a lot of times, especially in slower conditions, what you will see is the player with the more firepower, you have to assume more risk, right? In faster conditions, you can hit the ball 80% power, and that thing's really moving through the court. In slower conditions, you might have to step that up to 90% of your full swing power to get the kind of result you want from your shots. And a lot of times what you'll see, and I think we saw this today with Muguruza, is you're a little more aggressive in the first set, and then in the second set, the nerves never really went away. You pushed them away to play more aggressive for a while. You win a set, and then she lets her foot off the gas, big time. Whereas Sofia Kenin never came close to giving up. She just got more and more and more into the match, and you can really see it, the way she's so emotional on the court, not hiding anything. Again, she kind of reminds me of Novak Djokovic, which it can be a lot of fun to watch a player like this. So Muguruza kind of pulled off of the firepower in the second set and got a lot more careful, a lot more nervous. In the third set, again, related to the conditions, you saw Muguruza realize, okay, I'm going to lose this match. I have to go back to what I was doing in the first set, and Kenin is now playing better than in the first set, so I need to do even more. And then a little bit of fatigue starts to set in. And this is really how I see the Dominic Thiem match playing out. I feel like it's going to be the same thing we just saw in the women's final for Djokovic and Thiem, because Thiem is going to be able to hit through Djokovic's defense and grab a set, I'm sure. But then he's probably going to back off a little, maybe get a little nervous thinking about potentially winning his first major ever. And then I guarantee you, he's going to be a little too tired, even if he wants to go for his shots, to execute as many winners as you're going to have to hit in such slow conditions because it's harder to hit. And we totally saw that with Muguruza. And the perfect time to illustrate this is the 2-all, the fifth game of the third set. If you haven't seen this women's final, watch that 2-all game in the third set from start to finish. You got to see it. It was one of the most amazing things I've seen on a tennis court in recent years. And Sofia Kenin looks pretty in control of this match, but despite everything, Muguruza is a great champion, and we are at 2-all in the third set on serve. And Muguruza is up 40-love on Sofia Kenin's serve, and this is a crucial moment. And Sofia Kenin, what we saw every time she faced break points, but particularly at 2-all in the third set, down love 40, she plays some of her very best tennis. It's very much like Djokovic points that she constructed, staying alive in these very long rallies, and then finding a winner when the opportunity arose. She was able to hit the winner. Her backhand is her better shot, just like Novak Djokovic, more reliable in the clutch. Sofia Kenin, though, was able to hit 2 backhand winners, 2 forehand winners, and she doesn't hit a lot of aces, but she hit 1 ace when she came back from love 40, won 5 points in a row to go up 3-2, and she did not lose another game, winning that third set 6-2. It was pretty incredible. Again, if you haven't seen it, you should go to 2-all and watch the rest of the match, because watch the entirety of that third set after 2-all if you have limited time. You should see it. It was pretty amazing. So you might say, Matt, what makes Sofia Kenin any different? And full credit to Muguruza, who played like a true professional, was very respectful in her loss and her acceptance speech. Obviously, she's just happy to be back near the top of tennis in a final of a major. She had a very bad year last year, a lot of struggles for her. So credit to Garbiñe. It was a good match. She definitely, it wasn't like she choked. She might have got nervous in that second set and pulled off a little bit, but it wasn't a choke. I mean, she went all out. She gave it everything she had, especially in that 2-all game. You can see her trying so hard. But you might say, Matt, so why should we think this is special? Because I feel like without any real dominance, the women's game has been a little less interesting of a storyline to follow compared to the men's game, because everything's so epic with the men's game. The big three are fighting for history to be the greatest of all time. It is one heck of a storyline. In the women's game, with Serena is a great storyline, but you just don't, it's always more of a, will Serena be in good enough shape for this tournament? Is she fit and healthy enough to win? Because if she is, she will win. And other than that, it's not that interesting because no one will be able to stop her. It's not as exciting of a storyline. In some ways, Roger should be sending Rafa a thank you card. Sure, he might blame Rafa for only winning one French Open, but Rafa made men's tennis a lot more interesting. Some people, I'm sure, were like me and just loved watching Roger Federer win and didn't really care. But I'm sure a lot of other people thought it was kind of boring. I remember back then, people talking about it was boring because, Federer is going to win everything. Rafa and Djokovic came along. It made it very, very exciting and must-see TV. That's a thing we've kind of been missing in the women's game. So you might say, Matt, what's the difference between Ostapenko and Sofia Kenin? And what about Osaka? She won a couple, and we thought she was going to take over the sport, and now it looks like, she might not win ever again. I think we should give her some more time. Clearly, she let nerves get to her. But Sofia Kenin, the thing about her is, you saw in the videos of her when she's young, clearly, like, she's really into this, but I really believe it. She has a fighting spirit and an attitude that we see in big three types, and she, the way she takes the ball so early and stalks the baseline, that's very important to me. I've done a disservice to Ash Barty. Let's throw Ash Barty into the mix too. She's also young. I think she's 23, so about the same age as these other ladies. So I don't want, no disrespect to Ash Barty. I can't believe I didn't mention her earlier in the intro. But my point here is Sofia Kenin, this attitude that she has and the fearlessness, she kind of reminds me of the toughness of Simona Halep, except much younger, hitting a peak at this age, and more mentally tough than Simona Halep, Also, it's great to see Sofia Kenin taking the ball early, and she's got a really world-class backhand, but there's a lot of room for improvement for her. She could get a lot better at finishing at the net. Someone who can step in and take the ball early is going to have a lot of opportunities to go to the net. She could improve her net game. She could do a lot to improve her serve. She could improve her forehand. Again, her backhand is pretty world-class. So in a lot of ways, you could compare to Djokovic. Mental toughness, the fighting spirit, the incredible backhand, being able to break through at a very young age, just like Novak Djokovic, and a lot of room for improvement. We saw Djokovic's serve and his forehand get a lot better over the years. So I think we have a chance here with Sofia Kenin. I don't think she's going to be a one-slam wonder. And I think we're going to hear a lot more from Bianca Andreescu, so it's really sad that she's injured, but hopefully she comes back healthier than ever. And then, of course, we got Naomi Osaka. So we might have some very exciting stuff on the way. Okay, so that's all I'm going to say about the game today. Oh, I wanted to say one thing. I heard that Garbina Muguruza. I love saying that name, Muguruza. I also like to say Barcelona. I heard that she had climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. They said that in the broadcast, showed some pictures of it. And that had really inspired her, and it helped her, and this made me think about Alexander Zverev, it helped her focus on conquering a massive task like climbing a mountain one step at a time. That sounds very silly and simple, but I think it's actually a big deal. It sounds like it helped her change her mindset and her approach to taking things, think Rafa Nadal, one point at a time. She's a Spaniard after all, España. Take it 1 point at a time, one opponent at a time, one match at a time, one step at a time, like climbing a mountain. That's what winning a Grand Slam is like. And when they kept asking Sasha Zverev in the press conference all the time, what are you doing different? You were playing so bad, but now you're in the semifinals. And you could tell he was annoyed. He would say stuff like, I've already answered this question so many times. But the last time I heard him asked, I think it was after he lost to Dominic Thiem in that press conference, he said, I've already talked about this a lot. But then he went into it and he said, look, I've put a lot of focus on taking things one match at a time. And like I said earlier this Australian Open in the show, I'm not super impressed with Sasha Zverev. I'm impressed that he hasn't double faulted his way into a loss early, but I've seen enough struggles from him against that guy, what was his name? Igor with an E, a big Russian guy, Igor, can't remember his last name. You know, that match wasn't super compelling, didn't make me believe in Sasha Zverev's ability to maybe get to the final. Who would have knew that? But Sasha Zverev, he said that in his press conference. I had some early matches that weren't that great, but I just focused on getting through and getting better one step at a time. So I think we saw that with Muguruza. I think we saw it with Sasha Zverev, and I think it's a valuable lesson that we should all take note on. Let's move ahead of that. Let's talk a little bit about the conditions in the men's final, and then we'll get out of here. Oh, I wrote this in my match notes because the women's final turned out to be a very, very interesting match, fun match to watch. But there were some moments in the beginning where it looked like, is this going to turn into two people so nervous to be in a final that they're just going to take turns choking the match away? And it made me think about life before the Big Three. And one of the last finals before Big Three domination kicked in would be the match before Rafa, the final of the French before Rafa took over the French Open, became the King of Clay. Gaston Gaudio and Guillermo Coria, that match was a choke fest. That was two guys that was like a battle of who wants to lose this match more than the other. You're really not quite sure. It was a choke fest. It was not the most exciting thing in the world to see. And that's why I'm kind of excited about this women's result with Sofia Kenin, because I feel like we might start seeing people who feel like they belong there and have been, like Sofia, since childhood, training and dreaming of being at the top of the game. So I think that's very exciting. And I think it's exciting that we see Dominic Thiem because he does look like a serious contender. But with that said, a couple things I learned from watching the women's final. To me, Dominic Thiem is Muguruza. He's going to have more firepower and be able to hit through the slower conditions to get winners against Djokovic. But like with Sofia Kenin, Djokovic is going to have the grit and the fighting spirit, never giving up, and he's going to be fresher. You know, we saw Muguruza looking like the trainer had to come out and look at her back. It looked like she could be hurt. It looked like some of her long matches. You know, she started this tournament off losing 6-0 in the first round. She really had to work her way into the final. So I feel like Dominic Thiem, he's had to play some tough matches. We're going to see him breaking down before Djokovic, and we're going to see him have to really hit the ball close to his full power potential. Whereas Djokovic, like Sofia Kenin, is going to be able to step in, take the ball very early, survive in rallies, and go backhands up the line, backhand winners. He can hit forehand winners better than Sofia Kenin because he's actually developed it. Plus, his serve is much more of a weapon to Thiem. Djokovic's serve is more dangerous to Thiem than the Kenin serve was to Muguruza. So that alone, I feel like we're going to see that dynamic come out. I could be wrong. There is one thing that Dominic Thiem can do differently, and that is he can be extremely aggressive and take the ball very early and hug the baseline the whole match. You know, Muguruza was pretty good about staying on the baseline for a lot of the match, but Sofia Kenin did a better job. Dominic Thiem can try to outdo the Joker at his own game and just be Mr. Flat Ball, taking it early, but I know Dominic Thiem is getting better at this. I know he basically did do that at the World Tour Finals match back in November where he beat Novak. I don't know if he's going to be able to do it tomorrow. The conditions will be kind of like the World Tour Finals in that the bounce will be low, but they will be much slower conditions. So keep your eye on that. Hit the music. Last thing, I've seen a lot of comments saying Federer will never win again. And I just wanted to say something I forgot to say in the last show. Roger Federer basically hit 20 winners in the first 56 points of his match, the semifinal with Novak, against the greatest defender in the sport on one leg. You better believe if Roger Federer gets another shot at Djokovic in they had the perfect conditions for Federer. You know, the last show I showed how Patrick McEnroe had his phone up to show the heat was like 99 degrees Fahrenheit. If Roger gets to play in conditions that fast again against Djokovic and he's feeling 100%, you better believe he will be able to win. All right, we will be back tomorrow. Cross your fingers that Dominic Thiem wins, not because of the records of Rafa and Roger being a little bit safer from Novak, but because I have the most amazing song of all time ready to go. And we even get Dominic Thiem to sing it, which is incredible. Credit to Dominic Thiem to sing this song. If he doesn't win it, you probably won't hear it until he wins a major. If he never wins a major, you may never hear it. So let's hope he wins at some point. See ya!